Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some of the best screw HOA stories.
The first story is called $50 to Screw the HOA. When we bought our house, the largest in the hood and the original showcase home for the development, there was a shed in the backyard, my lady lair, if you will. The home sale was approved by the HOA and a letter of no violations was issued, so all good, right? The home, unfortunately, came with scads of abandoned property. Within 24 hours of taking possession of our home, the former owners broke back in to remove what was now legally ours. I stopped at the security guard shack to inquire about ensuring that the former owner's gate codes were inactivated and to keep an eye out for any attempt at continued entry into the gated hood. The guard assured me he would handle it and I went on my way. That evening, the guard came to my home to give me additional info I might need and offered security cam footage for the police. I thanked him for taking the time to make me feel safe in my new home, but before he left, he said, "Just to warn you, the HOA will go after you for your shed, they want it gone." After a bit more discussion, he informed me that the former owners were not only crazy but had gone toe-to-toe with the HOA over the shed. After 3 years and lawyers all around, the HOA finally said screw it, this is costing us too much money and their lawyer is better than ours, and dropped the whole thing. Within 2 weeks, I had 2 different neighbors tell me the HOA would give me problems over the shed. At the 3-week mark, an inspector from the county showed up to tell me he was investigating an anonymous complaint about code violations. He said the shed, visible only if you stood on my property, was in violation of the county as there was no permit for it. I was livid and already considering what avenues I had to keep my shed or win compensation for the loss of property when the code enforcer smiled a devious smile at me. He handed me a printout and said, "All you need to do is fill this out, pay $50 to the county, and you will be in code compliance." He then said that the anonymous complainant cannot touch your shed after that. The key here is that 4 years ago when they were battling the former residents, the county did not permit sheds and the bylaws say all additional property structures require permits. If there is no permit, the HOA can order the removal and fine the resident until it is gone. But 2 years ago the county started permitting sheds and the HOA was unaware of the change. I paid my $50 and got the permit, making my lady lair code compliant and untouchable by the HOA. I also made a new friend in code enforcement and all is well in my slice of heaven. The next story is called, Karen Got Fired for This. This happened a few years back. Our HOA has always been known to be sneaky and to flat out give false accusations about homeowners. Most recently, a homeowner was told she was supposed to get approval before she started re-shingling her roof. The thing is, her roof hasn't been re-shingled in 10 years, and she had no plans to do it. They make up things like that, call it just a mistake, call it malicious. Well, a few years ago, we had our time to shine. It was a simple morning, I was still temporarily living with my father at the time. Well, one morning, we decided to go out to get groceries, when we found that his pickup truck had been smashed into. Nothing was taken, it was just smashed into. The cops arrived, they do some investigating, and found that a rock inside the truck was from a house down the street. Unfortunately, they couldn't get them to admit to the crime, nor could they prove it was even them. Understandable, criminals will grab things that they find, but it was suspicious. The rock, I should say, was a special kind of rock that no one else in the neighborhood had, some round polished type, very unique. After this incident, I installed a security camera on his house. Well, not 2 days later, we got an HOA violation for a vehicle eyesore that needs to be removed, just 2 days later. I'm confused how such a letter could have been written up so fast, but I started to suspect foul play. One day, we were home and had a knock at the door. The HOA actually called a code inspection officer. The week hadn't even been over yet, so the parts to fix the truck weren't delivered yet. Code inspection tells my father that vehicles that do not run need to be removed. They both stop talking and take a second, and both almost say at the same time, "Don't I know you?" Turns out the code inspection officer went to the same church as my father and they knew each other. The officer tells my father if he can show the truck starts, he's going to write it up as being in code. My father starts the truck just fine as the engine isn't damaged. He tells him to go on with his day and to have a good one. At this point, we are furious because we are starting to suspect the HOA may have done this as there's no way they could have possibly known so fast. Unfortunately, our turn of the street had no neighbors with security cameras until I installed one on our house, so it caught nothing specific to our incident. Down the street, these people supposedly broke into a car as well, but the camera on their house was unable to see anything. Here's where the fun begins. After a couple of months, after nothing happened, I decided to install a new dashcam in my car. I found a good one that uses very little power off the battery and can activate if there are any bumps to the car, even if the car is off. A few days later, we got a violation notice for our mailbox being crooked. It wasn't crooked much, but I do remember it recently having an angle. Odd, I could just fix it. But my car was aiming straight at the mailbox. I'm thinking, no, this couldn't possible, it only records if there's a bump. I take out the memory card, and apparently, I didn't configure it correctly. It was recording the whole time, it never went into sleep mode. I watched as the investigator walks up to the mailbox, and pushes it crooked, then writes down on his tablet his findings and takes a picture for records. I'm appalled at what I see, I have the proof I needed. Now, for the malicious compliance, they wanted us to come to the board meeting and present what is going on at our address. We haven't told them yet that we had the pictures, but to summarize real fast how our HOA works, the board hires an outside company to do the grunt work, let's call it Bantry Management. We go to the meeting, and sit down. Bantry Management is the one in control of our account, and I swear to you she looked like a Karen, so the name fits for her. As time goes by in the meeting, we get to discuss what is happening at our house. We present the timelines and tell them about the truck being smashed, and just 2 days later we get a letter. We ask what dates the investigator was out for the time. Karen refuses to answer it. She argues ignorantly that we should keep better care of our stuff. As if it was our fault. Then comes the mailbox incident. We tell her that we have reasons to believe that the investigator is the one that is causing damages to our property and is harassing us. Karen denies this and says that is impossible, and that she knows him personally. I ask, is that so? She says, yes, why? I then pull my laptop out of my book bag that I had been hiding, open it up to the video file already loaded, and show it to the entire board. I said out loud, enter Exhibit A, and played the video. Karen's face becomes bright red, she says that is not her investigator. I then also pulled out the letter about the mailbox, which was complete with the date. It matches the cooked-on timestamp on the video. She still tries to claim it's not them. No, it's a coincidence, I'm sorry, but you have a vandal and it's not us. It's not? I let the video play, knowing she's falling into a pit hard right now. As the man walks towards my car, you can plain as day see Bantry Management on his shirt. She's no longer red now, she's white as a ghost. The board looks over at her and asks what she has to say about this. Karen is silent and has nothing to say except for a few noises which I assume was her brain trying to comprehend what just happened. I then proceed to bring up a previous case which I happened to remember before we left for the meeting, where we had a grass violation beside our house. Now the area they were claiming was actually not visible from the sidewalk due to the shape of the house. I asked her point blank, has at any time, your investigators walked on our property, illegally trespassing? Karen is visibly shaking now and mutters out, no, of course not. She had her head down, unable to maintain eye contact with me. She probably feels that I have more evidence, but unfortunately, I didn't. Our neighbors literally next door to us where the side of this wall was, stand up, and say, actually that's not true, I have witnessed one of your investigators go between our houses and poke around the trash bins. I didn't even realize she had this information, I couldn't have asked for better timing. Karen at this point just starts arguing with our neighbors about no proof. The board proceeds to apologize for the incident and they were going to discuss what is going to happen in the future about this. At that point, the meeting is over. A month passes and we get a letter that a new person will be in charge for Bantry Management, and new investigators. She was fired that night. Since she was fired, my father tells me we only get the occasional blip of errors, but they correct it immediately and don't bother us really anymore. The last story is called Volunteer HOA. My mum lives in a nice, newer home community with a voluntary HOA. My mother, being the firecracker that she is, refused to formally join the HOA but agreed to do the things she would do anyway to upkeep her home. We paint for her, she has a gardener, washes windows, everything. She never signed any documents, doesn't pay fees, but told the board she would adhere to the standards she didn't find silly. The volunteer president lives next to my mother and this guy has never liked our family. Since mum didn't join, he would knock on her door for friendly visits to tell her what rules she was violating. It was all very silly and we continued to ignore him. His biggest pet peeve was her trash cans. They stayed out too long after trash pickup and he said it was an eyesore for the rest of the neighborhood. My mum is wheelchair bound and is still about 95% independent. There are a few things she cannot do and bringing the trash cans in and out of the side gate is one of them. For the chores, my sister or I come over the night before trash day and put them out, and the following evening to put them back in. He moaned and complained, wrote letters, and called the city about her trash cans. This guy knew my mum is in a wheelchair, but he kept harassing her. It was after a winter storm that the trash can blew over and sprayed the neighborhood with trash overnight. It wasn't just her can, it was several. My sister and I walked the neighborhood and picked up the trash as soon as we could. The neighbor lost it and gathered up the other members of the board next trash day and stormed up to her house. He yelled at her through the screen door while the other idiots nodded their heads. I happened to be there and was preparing to grab a broom and sweep the trash, yelling at my mum off our porch. But, to my mother's credit, she didn't yell back. She simply opened the door and rolled her wheelchair down the drive. And then, my tiny mother struggled to pull the trash can back up the driveway with her one good arm. By the time she got the can halfway up the drive, the angry mob was glaring daggers at the president. I would find out later he never told them she was disabled and painted her as lazy, and most of the meetings were he moaning about my mum and telling lies about what a nightmare it was living next to her. After a round of muttered apologies, they scattered like roaches in the light. Once they left, I moved the trash cans in and we had a good laugh. The volunteer HOA disbanded very soon after that. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comments section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.